My mom's fiance stole my college savings of $7,000, and my mom told me to shut up about it. So I turned them over to the police and later found out that my father left me a huge inheritance that my entire family has been using. Recently, my mother and her fiance were arrested, and now my maternal grandparents hate me for it. All this happened because I called the cops, and I had good reasons for it. My mom and I never got along, especially after my dad died 10 years ago. I'm 17 now, and in a couple of months, I'm supposed to start college. I always knew my mom wouldn't save a penny for me, so I understood I'd have to work and save money myself. I started working at 14, taking odd jobs after school and saving money for the past 4 years to at least have something for college. Relatives often gave me money for birthdays and holidays, which I also saved. In the end, I managed to save nearly $7,000, and I was thrilled about it. All the money was in cash, kept in a wooden box my dad made for me, hidden in the corner of my closet. I didn't have a bank account because my mom forbade me from opening one, and I never told anyone about the box, so I still don't understand how anyone found it. A few days ago, I discovered the box was completely empty. When I asked my mom what happened, she said her fiance took the money to invest in buying their new house. I was absolutely furious when I heard this. A huge fight broke out at home, me on one side and my mom and her fiance on the other. But in the end, I'm just a 17-year-old kid, and they were older and had authority, so I had to back down. The only thing I could do was go to my room, lock the door, and cry for hours. Everything I'd worked for was gone, and I'd have to start from scratch. I wasn't even sure I could save anything again before college. It hurt so much, and I felt so alone. That day, I decided I'd get revenge because I couldn't let this slide. Fortunately, I got my revenge 3 days later. Now they're arrested and facing consequences for the crime they committed. The only problem is my grandparents, who were always on my side but suddenly turned against me. I can't understand it. My mom's fiance, let's call him Rob, came into our lives 2 years ago, and I hated him from the start. He's one of the worst people I've ever met. I'd even call him an abuser. He never touched me physically, but verbally and emotionally, absolutely. Usually my mom bore the brunt of it, but sometimes he'd lash out at me saying whatever came to his mind. He'd curse at me, try to make me cry like he did with my mom, and get even angrier when he saw I didn't care. That made him lose control and say even worse things, and my mom never even tried to protect me. After my dad's death, my mom didn't date anyone for a few years, but then she met Rob. For the first couple of months, he was pretty nice and tolerable. But then they had their first big fight, and that's when he showed his true colors. He manipulated my mom however he wanted, and within 6 months, he moved in with us. He was a useless, lazy idiot who couldn't hold a job for long. For context, he's about 35, but still occasionally asks his parents for money because he has zero financial literacy and always spends way more than he earns. When he fights with my mom, he takes money from his parents, but when things are calm, he's happy to live off my mom. The saddest part is that my mom isn't a millionaire who can support a partner used to living large. She's just a senior manager at a local supermarket. While her salary is decent, it's clearly not enough for the lifestyle Rob wants. I never let their problems become mine. I tried to be as independent as possible since I was 14. I avoided asking my mom for anything except the bare essentials, and once I started working, I stopped asking for even that. I don't ask my mom for anything, and the only things I rely on her for are housing and food. I don't expect her to do anything beyond that because I know it's pointless. She made it clear from childhood that she doesn't like me. She was never kind to me, and I always felt like she didn't need me. As I grew older, that feeling turned into certainty. When my dad was alive, he always stood up for me and supported me if my mom got too angry. But after his death, I was completely alone, and it's been that way for years. Things only got worse with Rob, but I always comforted myself with the thought that I'd soon leave for college and forget all this. Now, that seems completely unrealistic. 3 days after my money was stolen, I sat in my room doing nothing because I was in a terrible depression. The day after I found out the money was gone, we moved into the new house. I did all the work I was supposed to, but I didn't say a word to my mom or Rob, and they didn't seem to care. On the third day, my mom told me to dress up because they were throwing a housewarming party. I yelled at her saying I wasn't participating in anything because she stole my money, and the only reason they could afford this house was the money they took from me. That made her furious. She said that now that we finally had our own house instead of renting, I should be happy for them and shut up about it because I owe her for my entire life. She meant raising me, which is her legal obligation, not a favor. As for the house, it was way too big for the three of us. I knew they bought it just to impress everyone with the prestigious address and spacious rooms. That day, I was so upset that I did something I'd never done before. I decided to call my dad's parents. It was tough because After my dad's death, my paternal grandparents distanced themselves from us. I guess it was too painful for them to stay in touch. Still, I had their numbers and decided to call them in a moment of desperation. My maternal grandparents, with whom I had a better relationship, took a strangely neutral stance. When I told them about the stolen money, expecting them to talk to my mom, they just said they wanted her to buy a new house and were happy for her, and I should look for the positives. We'd finally have our own place and wouldn't worry about rent. Their reaction seemed odd because they'd always tried to be on my side before, even if they didn't confront my mom directly. This time, it was different, and I didn't understand why. I was so mad at them that I stopped contacting them. That day, when my mom told me to just deal with it, I decided to reach out to my paternal grandparents, hoping they'd react differently and give me some hope. I don't know why, but I instinctively felt I needed to call them. Thankfully, they answered. As soon as they picked up, I told them everything. I said I understood how painful it must be for them to talk to us, and that they didn't want contact. But this was an emergency, and if my dad were alive, he'd want them to help me. I told them my mom took my money, that I'd worked so hard for years to save for college, and now I wasn't sure I could even go. After my story, my grandpa said he was confused because my dad had left a college fund for me, and he didn't understand why I needed to save separately. This was a complete shock because my mom never told me about it, and I never asked, assuming she hadn't saved anything for me. I'd completely forgotten that my dad might have planned something for me since he knew he was going to die soon. He died so young that I assumed he hadn't had time to prepare anything. So when my grandparents told me this, I was stunned. By then, I was already furious and upset, so I immediately asked them to send me any proof I could use against my mom. They said they'd try to find the documents and call back in a couple of hours. I sat in my room trying to piece it together and suddenly realized my mom and Rob clearly stole my college fund to use for themselves and buy the house. As far as I know, my mom didn't earn enough to afford such a house, and Rob hadn't worked for the past 3 months, so I doubt he had the money for it. I just needed confirmation, and then I'd report it to the police. A few hours later, my grandparents finally contacted me and sent photos of documents my mom had signed, promising to use the money my dad left for my education and to ensure I had a comfortable life. I literally laughed out loud when I read that, because she'd done everything to make my life as uncomfortable as possible. She signed those documents herself, and it infuriated me that my grandparents never mentioned this before. It was like they abandoned me after my dad's death and turned away completely. My mom was never truly there for me. My maternal grandparents pretended to be on my side, but it was probably just an act. My dad's parents were too consumed by their grief to care about me. When I asked why they hadn't shown me the documents earlier, they gave a flimsy excuse. They said they forgot about it after my dad's death since I was so young then. When I got older, we stopped talking, and the documents slipped their minds because they're not young anymore. I couldn't argue with that and decided to let it go. With the proof in hand, I called my friend whose dad worked in the police and said I needed help. That evening, during the housewarming party, my friend's dad showed up with a police officer and a lawyer to arrest my mom and Rob. By spending my money, my mom had basically set herself up for a lawsuit since she violated the agreement she signed years ago. While I explained to the party guest what was happening, my mom and Rob were finally arrested. It was the most satisfying moment of my life. Almost everyone they wanted to impress, former colleagues, friends, was shocked and disgusted as they were led away in handcuffs. Even then, my mom and Rob looked so arrogant, glaring at me like I'd done something awful. My mom's parents were at the party too and were devastated seeing their daughter taken away, and they refused to talk to me afterward. When all the guests left, I was alone in the huge house and had no idea what to do next. I felt awful because even though they were arrested, they'd likely be released on bail in a few hours. Even if I planned to press charges, it would take months to prove their guilt, and there was still a chance they'd wiggle out and turn things in their favor. There was no way to predict how it would end, and until then, I wouldn't get back the money my dad left me. Either way, I was at a loss. I couldn't sell the house because it was in my mom and Rob's names. Even if I wanted to force them to sell it and repay me, I'd have to go to court and fight with a lawyer. Luckily, I didn't have to worry about costs because my friend and his dad were so kind that they promised to handle everything, understanding the tough situation I was in. Still, I had no idea what to do next. It was made worse by the fact that the only people who'd been on my side no longer wanted to talk to me. My maternal grandparents said they wanted nothing to do with me because I was an ungrateful son. They could understand that my mom and I had a bad relationship, but sending her to jail for this, after everything she supposedly did for me, was too much for them. They cut me off completely, and that hurt the most. Now I feel completely alone. For now, I've definitely won the fight against my mom and Rob, but in the long run, it feels like I've lost so much more. I don't know what to do now and feel utterly helpless for sending my mom and her fiancé to jail for stealing my savings, which they spent on their new house. So, before we move to the next update, I suggest you share your opinion on this story in the comments. In my view, no matter how people judge me, the situation is clearly complicated. On one hand, I totally get the author, and he's kind of in the right. But on the other hand, doing this to your parents is just so wrong. At least, if I put myself in the mother's shoes, if my son did this to me, I'd feel awful. I wouldn't even understand why I had him if you can even talk about kids that way. Sure, you could say it's a mother's duty to raise me, and she owes me just for being born. But on one hand, no one asked her to have a son, and on the other, she did give birth to him, invested her money and energy. That's not right either. You only get it when you have your own kids. Overall, it's a pretty philosophical question in my opinion. Let's move to the update and see what happened next. Update 1. I moved out of the house I was living in, the one my mom and Rob bought. It's been a week since I reported them to the police, and after 48 hours in custody, they were released. As soon as I heard they were back home, I decided to leave immediately because I didn't want any conflict. I'd packed my things in advance, so I just had to walk out. As they came in, I left. They tried to stop me and talk, but I wasn't going to engage and left as fast as I could. I took a taxi I'd called beforehand and went straight to my friend's place where I've been living for the past 3 days. By the way, this is the same friend whose dad helped with the arrest and the lawyer. Now, the three of us, me, his dad, and the lawyer, meet every day to figure out how to wrap this up quickly. At this point, I'm so exhausted that I'm ready to settle. We've arranged a meeting with them, their lawyer, and a court-appointed mediator in a couple of days. We'll see how the negotiations go. If they refuse my terms, we'll have to go to court, and who knows how long that'll take. I'll try my best to settle peacefully, but I want it to be fair, and I want the financial support I need to finish my education. My friend's dad said they can help with money for now, but I don't feel comfortable accepting their financial help. I don't know how to feel about it. Update 2. Well, something interesting happened, and I'm shaking with anger because of what I found out is just disgusting. It feels sketchy, but my mom sent screenshots, so I don't know what to believe anymore. There are only 2 days left until our mediator meeting, and a couple of hours ago, my mom contacted me via email saying she urgently needed to talk. I'd blocked her everywhere, so she had no access to me, but she created a new account and sent an email that turned everything upside down. I won't waste time. Here's the point. My entire damn family conspired against me. That's right. The reason my grandparents on both sides acted so strangely this whole time is that they were in on it from the start. My mom didn't just spend the money my dad left me. They all took their share and kept quiet about it. Now, I finally understand why my maternal grandparents were so upset when I sent my mom to jail, and why they only pretended to support me but never stood up to her. She had dirt on them. It's also clear why my dad's parents didn't bother telling me about the documents she signed until I asked. They were all in on it. And my mom sent me proof. She was emailing them when I was about 14 or 15. Luckily, she kept the emails because they were all so stupid they discussed it over email. She sent me screenshots of those emails and said that since I got her arrested, it's only fair to drag everyone else into it too. It's not right to punish just her when they all conspired against me and spent the money for their own gain. My dad left me a huge sum, but all these people, including my dad's lawyer, decided it was better to hide it from me and use the money for themselves. I still can't believe this happened, and keep rereading the emails, trying to make sense of it because it feels unreal. My whole family turned against me, even my dad's parents, which is just shocking. The only reason my grandparents told me about the documents and sent proof recently is that their conscience finally got to them, and they realized they were wrong. When I called and asked for help, they decided to tell me the truth. They'd planned to do it earlier, but my mom and her parents convinced them to stay quiet because otherwise it would drag them down too. They promised not to reach out and tell me the truth unless I asked. When I did, they sent the documents as proof. So that's how it all came out. I'm glad they helped then, but it doesn't excuse them. It also explains why they acted so distant even after sending the documents in. They felt guilty. They still can't openly admit what they did, and they're ashamed, as they should be. But my brain just isn't working right now. I don't know what to believe or how to deal with this. I haven't even told my friend yet because it's too much. I'm shaking. I feel betrayal, pain, and rage all at once and don't know what to do with these emotions. Obviously, I need to talk to the lawyer because this is a huge discovery, and we'll definitely bring it up at the negotiations. My mom, in trying to drag everyone else down and get revenge on those who ratted her out, forgot that she's screwing herself over too. She'll lose way more. Still, I'm glad she told me because now I know for sure that I have no one in this world who truly has my back, except maybe a couple of people. I couldn't rely on anyone, and that's the reality. Probably the only thing left for me is to tell my friend so he can pass it to his dad, and we can all sit down with the lawyer to figure out what to do next. But no matter what, I'm definitely going to college this year. I've made up my mind and won't back down. I'm ready to ask my friend's dad for help. Not to pay for my education, but maybe to co-sign an educational loan. That seems like the only viable option. Update 3. Hey, we had the mediator meeting today, and as I said, I brought up what my mom told me. Basically, she confessed to everything she did, and now she'll have to return the amount she and the rest of the family stole from me. She tried to justify it, saying some of the money supposedly went to raising me, so we can't blame her or expect her to return the full amount. But I insisted that even if that's true, my grandparents still have to return their share. They didn't just take my money, they took my dreams and aspirations. I'm demanding everything be returned so I can live a decent life. I'm done being dependent. I discussed it with the lawyer and my friend's dad, and they said cases like this, sadly, aren't uncommon. But that doesn't change how despicable my mom's actions were. They were as furious as I was. They promised to do everything possible to ensure I never have to depend on anyone's money again. If my money hadn't been stolen, I could have lived comfortably since childhood. Before he died, my dad made sure my life would be happy. But my family couldn't stand it. They had to take everything because they're that selfish, but it's over now. The lawyer and I decided we're going to hit hard. No more sitting back and watching them enjoy themselves at my expense. One thing's clear, there'll be another meeting, and this time all the grandparents will be there because it's obvious they're involved too. Might go to court, but for now, I'll take out a student loan and get through this period. But I will get justice and more. I'll make sure they return everything they stole. That money was meant for me and me alone, not them. It was an agreement my mom signed. It was a promise they all made to my dad to protect me and make me happy. They're all traitors, and I never want to see them again.